I got it because my wife was cheating on me with a lover in my bed and they sued me. Just a few hours earlier, I, Ethan 34, found my wife, Anna 28, in bed with another man. I'm currently hiding away in the ancient fishing cottage owned by my dad while I consider my options. I feel so unworthy and devastated. My inward rage is unbearable. I have no one to confide in and my whole world has fallen apart. The one person I felt I could rely on has lied to me after lying to me about it. 3 people, myself included, were afraid. I'm lucky if the police aren't looking for me right now. If so, I'll take care of it when the time comes. I'm a construction worker with a focus on destruction. I travel a lot with my team, and because of the weather, I was only meant to be gone for 8 of the 12 days. Wet constructions cannot be destroyed, and the weather caused us to be late. Until we could resume work, I made the decision to return home by plane. At midnight, my plane touched down. I kept my return from Anna a secret because I wanted to surprise her. From the airport, I took a 30-minute drive to our home. Through her work in real estate, Anna discovered a lovely plot of property 10 years ago, far away from other houses. I finished building our house 3 years later, and we have loved it ever since. Any unidentified cars parking in front are odd because we have a 4-car garage. My heart fell at seeing a black SUV that I didn't recognize. I knew right away. I hadn't felt like our marriage needed any work. Our sexual life was regular and enjoyable, and we hadn't argued. However, I had an idea of what was within. She would have brought it up if the car was a relative's. Though it was improbable, I harbored a hope that it was a female coworker who had overindulged in alcohol and needed to collapse. For 20 minutes or more, I sat in my car thinking about what to do next. I wedged my SUV between a retaining wall and the driver's side of the vehicle when I parked. Its owner would not be breaking a window or taking off without my consent. I parked my car and went through the deck to get inside. I holstered my SS, which I was allowed to carry hidden before I got into my car at the airport. I was terrified of losing control and hurting someone, not for my life. Everything in the house was unnaturally quiet as I entered. A completed dinner for 2 on the table and a sink full of dishes offered a different narrative than my initial suspicion that no one was home. I strolled serenely down the hallway to our bedroom and turned the knob carefully. I tried opening the door, but nothing came out. It was completely dark in the room. I moved to turn on the light in the bathroom. I turned around to find Anna sleeping on top of a naked man I didn't recognize, absolutely nude. I was inconsolable. My chest felt as though a 200-pound weight had been placed there. I started to cry, but I knew that sobbing was useless. I pulled out my phone and started to record. I walked around the bed, capturing the action on camera. It started to sink in that my marriage was over. Even though I'd been 100% faithful, I recognized that all of our property would be divided equally. It dawned on me abruptly that part of the divorce settlement would require selling the home I had personally constructed. I never would have anticipated how unbearably awful the physical betrayal was. I never would have anticipated how unbearably awful the physical betrayal was. The realization that I was going to lose everything monetarily almost drove me crazy because it seemed so unjust. But I knew that I would never touch her polluted body again. I was done with her. What I saw horrified me, but Anna more than anything else. She had changed in the space of 20 minutes in my mind from a devoted wife to a cunning stranger. They both stayed still. I was pretty sure they were both out cold. I could care less about whatever damage I might do now that the house was about to be sold. Having been caught red-handed in my own bed, I took out my .45 and fixed my gaze on the 2 of them. I considered killing her for a brief moment, even though I knew the bullets would pass through her and kill him as well. However, I soon saw that neither of them was worth being put in the electric chair. I knew that after this was all over, I might wish to continue living, even in spite of my excruciating suffering. Consequently, I lifted the revolver, cocked the hammer, and fired 2 shots into the ceiling. They startled abruptly awake. As the guy shoved Anna to the ground and looked at me, Anna desperately fought to get off him. His eyes were filled with fear, but Anna's was filled with absolute terror. He seemed almost collected. When Anna tried to clarify that it wasn't what it appeared to be, I shot her through the bedroom closet door, instantly silencing her. He said nothing at all. With the sheet pulled up to their necks, they took a seat on different sides of the bed. When I insisted on knowing his name, he revealed it to be John. When I questioned Anna how they knew one another, she told me he was a real estate agent. Anna had the gall to say that this was their first and only time cheating when I asked how long the affair had been going on because I had been totally unaware of it. I shot 2 people. Between them, I fired 2 more shots into the headboard. They began sobbing and begging me to stop. When I followed up, John surprised me by acknowledging that it had been 6 months. I was furious, but at least I knew the truth. When did Anna cease loving me, I wanted to know. She lied, saying she never stopped, through her tears. I shot the bathroom mirror on her side of the bed twice, breaking it all over the floor and counter. I told her I was tired of her lies and labeled her a useless liar. I didn't care that she was obviously suffering a panic attack at the time. I asked John whether he was married as I turned to face him. When I asked him whether he had kids that would miss him, he hesitated a while before admitting he had 2. I thanked him for exposing Anna's true nature to me before we became parents, but I questioned whether it was worth losing his family to have an affair with a married woman. He pleaded with me not to let his wife know. I urged him to stop talking since his wife had a 75% chance of becoming a widow at that point. I paced at the foot of the bed, gun in hand, for the next 10 minutes, unable to get my thoughts straight. I understood that I would eventually have to let them go, and that holding them there might be construed as hostage-taking. I told Anna to get up so she could fetch her car keys. I instructed her to stop reaching for her garments on the floor; they weren't needed, so simply retrieve the keys instead. Still in tears, she went down the corridor and came back holding her keys, which she gave to me. I took out the house key and informed her that she would no longer require it. I knew she was going to argue, and she would have a point legally, but legal arguments usually finish quickly with A45. Then I told John to get up, get his wallet and keys out of his jeans, and come follow me. When his lips and nose started to bleed, I took him outside to his car and hit him repeatedly in the face. I got his keys, got my car moved to make room for his SUV, and motioned for John to get up. I told him that he had 2 options: either he went home and told his wife everything, or I would get back to her in a day with all the proof I had gathered of his adultery. I gave him a half-minute to go. I commanded John to leave my property immediately or risk being carried off by a coroner. His lack of clothes was irrelevant in that moment. He dashed to his car and sped away before I even reached a count of 20. Inside, I found Anna sitting at the kitchen table, now draped in a robe. I grabbed her cell phone from the bedroom and handed it to her. I asked if she wanted to call her family to come and get her. She declined. I even suggested contacting the police, but she refused, perhaps expecting we could talk things out. Anna tried to speak, but I cut her off, stating we were done for good. I made it clear that our home was no longer hers, and she needed to leave immediately. I told her that any love I had for her evaporated after her betrayal, and that there would be no reconciliation. She began to apologize, cry, and beg, but 4 shots fired into the oven and fridge silenced her. Living more than 5 miles from the nearest neighbor has its advantages. I told Anna that I didn't care about my own life or death at that moment, and that her actions had completely shattered me. I explained that all my love for her had turned into hatred the moment I saw her with John. If I could erase her from my memory, I would. I directed her to go to the garage, get in her car, and leave forever. Through her tears, she went to the garage, got in her car, and drove away. That was about 6 hours ago. Aware that my actions might have legal repercussions, I didn't want to face the police. I turned off everything, locked the doors, and got back into my car. My dad owns a fishing cabin that he and his friends use often. I drove there and used the hidden spare key to let myself in. It was too early to call anyone when I arrived. I decided I needed a drink, and am now about halfway through a bottle of my father's Glenlivet Scotch. Dad will be furious until I tell him what Anna did. Plus, it's the bottle I bought him for his birthday last month. I'm at a complete loss for what to do next. Most people try to find out if their spouse is cheating. I already know. I don't need to hear any justifications for infidelity because they all sound empty. I want a divorce. I want it to go in my favor and to happen as quickly as possible. She no longer has the option to choose me. I'm not a consolation prize. I want to erase her from my life and eliminate every reminder of her. I don't ever want to see or hear from her again. Can lawyers handle everything? I have the funds to start the process. What I lack is the time, energy, and patience to deal with this nightmare. 7 years of marriage wasted. 7 years that now feel like one big lie because after what I witnessed, how can I believe anything she ever said? 7 years thrown away on a deceitful person. Part of me wishes I had shot them both and then taken my own life, but that might be the Scotch talking. I need to get tested to make sure she didn't give me anything. Actually, I've wasted nearly a decade on her. Her actions have nullified my life and any value my time with her had. The only thing I've learned from this marriage is that honesty and loyalty are relics of the past. The only thing that lasts forever in relationships these days is betrayal. Love and marriage certainly don't. People probably see me as some sort of brute for reacting with violence and threats. I'm sure I'll face criticism for using my gun. But I didn't harm anyone physically, and the bed sheets were already ruined before I fired any shots. If the bullet holes lower the house's value by a few $1,000s, I can live with that. I just can't handle this situation. Part of me wants to just end it all because the life I knew is over, and it's never coming back. People might say, I'm lucky I found out about Anna's infidelity before we had kids, but it doesn't feel that way right now. I go from uncontrollable sobbing to an intense rage I've never felt before. I have to either face this or just end it all, and right now the latter seems more appealing. Maybe if I pass out and get some sleep, things will seem less bleak, but I doubt it. The weather is supposed to clear up in a few days, so I'll need to catch a plane the day before. I don't particularly like the area we're working in, but part of me wants to stay there once the job is done and not come back. Another part of me wonders if I should start over somewhere new, if I even have the energy to start over. How do I choose a lawyer? Is there an online rating system for them? I despise lawyers, considering them part of a corrupt profession. Now I need to find the toughest one out there. This heartache isn't going away anytime soon. What's the point of doing anything? The person I dedicated myself to is gone forever, and tonight I learned she never truly existed. I wasn't perfect, but I was faithful and never abusive. She had never heard me really yell until tonight. I thought I was a good husband. I enjoyed being married and loyal, but it seems every decent guy is just a target for someone looking to ruin his life for her gain. To hell with this life, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and relationships in general. I'm just rambling now. I'll go to bed, and when I wake up, I'll call my parents and explain everything. I'm in shock and have never felt such heartache before. Maybe tomorrow will be better. Update: I'm sure some will say my actions were excessive. Apparently the law agrees with them. This update will likely please those who criticized me. So here's what I'm facing. I was arrested for making threats, felony assault, assault with a deadly weapon, and a few other charges. If convicted, even with no prior criminal record, I could face over 25 years in prison. It's unlikely I'll get the maximum sentence, but it's still possible. Ironically, if I had actually shot John and my wife in a rage, I might be looking at less time. John went to the police instead of confessing to his wife. He admitted to the police that he was caught with a married woman, but somehow got their sympathy. The deputy who took his statement was one of the officers who arrested me the next day. I didn't resist and went peacefully. Looking back, I think John had me charged to protect himself because the judge at my arraignment ordered me to have no contact with John or his family. So I haven't reached out to his wife in any way. By getting me arrested, There are a couple of other updates. I had to inform my employer about the charges against me, which now restrict my ability to leave the state. This threw them into a panic because my role is so specialized that it took them 2 weeks to find someone with the same qualifications and experience. Consequently, I am now out of a job. This made finding legal representation even more complicated. I had to prioritize a defense attorney over a divorce attorney. 2 days ago, I was served with divorce papers. It's clear that my wife intends to take everything she can. We haven't spoken since that night. She has tried calling and texting, but I haven't read or responded to any of her messages. I despise her deeply. I don't think I will ever get over this or be able to move on. My life, as I knew it, is completely shattered. I have been staying with my parents, who have been incredibly supportive. However, there isn't much anyone can say right now that can make this situation better. Everyone is focused on my criminal charges and avoiding jail time, but the loss of my marriage and future has been put on hold, so to speak. I've even heard my mom crying for me in private. This ordeal is also destroying my parents. They shouldn't have to worry about their son potentially going to prison. They should be enjoying their retirement. I spend most days holed up in my childhood room, waiting for the next blow. I suspect that my wife is collaborating with John or the police against me in the criminal case. She certainly isn't hindering anyone. Since we haven't spoken, I have no idea what's going on in her head. If she hates me as much as I despise her, I suppose she's just giving me what she thinks I deserve. I'm sorry I don't have a better update. Those who advocate for leaving and divorcing a cheating spouse will be pleased to know that it's happening one way or another. I just don't know if I'll be doing it as a free man or from behind bars. My cousin mentioned something about dating again, and it was just so jarring. I haven't even begun to think about trusting another woman. The idea of dating again is unthinkable. If the worst comes to pass, my next date could be with some guy named Marcus in prison. My lawyer is working hard to not only keep me out of jail, but also to win the case. I appreciate that because I can't handle prison. Even without jail time, my career is over. But prison, I can't endure that. I've been in shock since the moment I walked in and saw my wife naked with another man. This situation keeps getting worse, and I feel like I'm stuck in a horrible movie that I can't stop watching. This sounded clearer in my head than it looks typed out, but it's the best I can do under the circumstances. My life is utter hell right now, and infidelity is 100 to blame. Update: I'll try to explain what has happened since my last update, even though I might use some incorrect legal terms. From what I understand, it's a federal law for the prosecution and defense to present all evidence and potential witnesses before a trial. There was a reason my lawyer kept the footage of my soon-to-be ex-wife and John cheating a secret. It wasn't exactly a trial, more like a hearing, but there was a judge presiding. My attorney brought in a USB drive as evidence, but the actual footage was on a tablet. To sum it up, John either didn't realize I had evidence or forgot that I mentioned it. I remembered stowing my phone after recording them before I pulled my gun, so neither he nor my wife knew I had captured anything. When John refused to testify, the charges against me were dismissed. Given that his father is a retired judge and he's a business owner, he couldn't risk having that footage entered into the public record. So, I dodged a significant bullet. My lawyer was confident she could get a jury to acquit me, but having no trial at all was an even better outcome. John left the courtroom before I was released. When I turned my phone on, I saw a barrage of missed texts and calls from an unknown number, presumably my wife. I didn't respond or read any of them. I'm sure she found out I had video proof and was either trying to reconcile or escalate the situation. Her lawyer can deal with mine. I have not communicated with her in any way since that night. She became dead to me the moment I caught her cheating. If I want to talk to the dead, I'll hold a seance. I hired a top-notch divorce attorney who was the first person I contacted after the charges were dropped. The footage will be crucial in the divorce proceedings, so showing it to John's wife will have to wait. I imagine she might hear about it through the grapevine, but who knows? He likely made some preemptive explanation to her, but I doubt it was a full confession. My parents were overjoyed when I called them with the unexpected good news. We all expected a drawn-out trial. None of us thought the hearing would resolve the criminal charges so quickly. Now, my focus shifts to the divorce. My lawyer already has my wife's filed divorce papers. This process is not going to be as smooth as my soon-to-be ex-wife anticipated. She is currently living in the house, which gives her a slight advantage, but my lawyer is working to counter that with legal measures. I have no intention of moving back into that house. I couldn't live there after what happened. Besides, I heard it needs repairs and new appliances, but I don't want her to have it either. With the real estate market being so high, I want it sold, along with the land. She shouldn't get to keep it, especially since she's the one who destroyed the marriage. If she wanted to stay there, she shouldn't have cheated. Actions have consequences. If she thinks a fling is worth losing a house, she's in the wrong profession. Regarding my job, I plan to spend this week either trying to get my old position back or finding a new one. I don't want to displace anyone, especially in such a specialized field, but I need to pay my legal fees. I doubt my replacement has the same experience and knowledge I do. I don't think I'll be unemployed for long. I never thought I'd be eager to return to work, but the past few months have been far from a vacation. I need something else to focus on besides the divorce and to move past that horrific night. I'm lucky I'm not dead and incredibly fortunate I'm not in jail, but the entire situation infuriates me, not just the money wasted on legal fees, but the time lost, the lies I believed, and the betrayal. I realize now I never truly knew her. Acting like a fool over someone who is essentially a stranger to me is deeply unsettling. If you ever feel the urge to lash out and hurt someone, if you're going to lose it over a truly devoted, loving partner, go ahead. But losing your mind over someone who lied and never cared, not worth a single punch, and certainly not worth pulling a trigger. Learn from my experience, it's not worth it. Honesty, both with yourself and others, would solve so many problems. My soon-to-be ex-wife keeps trying to reach out, but that ship sailed when she chose to be unfaithful. I need a fresh start, somewhere far enough from my parents to have my space, but not so far that I can't visit them easily. I despise big cities, but small towns have their own drawbacks. I made great money before and will again, but the idea of starting over somewhere new is incredibly appealing right now. I just don't know where I want to go. I only know I can't stay here. I'm grateful we didn't have children. This whole situation would be even more unbearable if kids were involved. It's a relief to cut ties and move on without any permanent connections to her. I love kids and still want them someday, but not with someone who could betray me like that. At least I know I can rebuild my life and career. I'm really down right now, but knowing I have the freedom to start anew gives me hope. I can leave her behind as a massive mistake, a tragic chapter in my life. Therapy is definitely on the agenda. I've got an appointment for individual counseling in 2 weeks. I know I'll get called out for my anger, but I need that. I need someone to help me piece my life back together. What I did was wrong, and I own that. I can only move forward and improve. I can't change the past. Final update, I've been struggling to find the words to explain what's happened and where things stand. I owe it to those who supported me to provide an update. But recounting all the drama in detail would take too long. Our lawyers have been in communication. My soon-to-be ex-wife's team kept insisting we talk, but I refused. My side tried to push negotiations forward. Whenever the house and property were mentioned, my lawyer noticed they seemed uneasy. Despite this, they wanted a face-to-face meeting, claiming it was crucial for our futures, whether we stayed together or not. I still wanted to refuse, but my lawyer pointed out that I'd have to face her in court eventually. They knew we had evidence of infidelity, but hadn't seen it. My lawyer wanted to understand their strategy, so we agreed to meet. We gathered in a conference room at my lawyer's office. I was already seated when my wife and her lawyer arrived. I tried to look at her with pure disdain, but she started crying and moving toward me, so clearly it didn't work. I told her to stay back, which only made her cry harder. I stepped back, which stopped her approach. I'll spare the details, but I let out every vile thought I had about her, every horrible thing I believed, and everything I wished would happen to her. Her lawyer was visibly shocked, and even mine was taken aback. Although he had anticipated this when he consented to the meeting, my lawyer was a little taken aback. It took my wife a while to realize that I truly meant everything I said, and that I hated her for what she had done to me and to us. We were forced to take a half-hour break to collect ourselves before the meeting could begin. When we got back together, my wife asked to talk to me uninterrupted. I'm not able to quote her exactly, but this is the main idea of what she stated. She began by saying she was really sorry for all that had happened and that she hoped I would call her or answer her SMS. After what I'd stated before, she came to terms with the fact that it wouldn't happen. She then moved the conversation to our land's possible value. It appears that a big business would be interested in buying a sizable portion of property, including ours, to develop it. I won't name the corporation, but they would be purchasing a sizable portion of land, and our land fully meets their requirements. It is near an airport, a major thoroughfare, a power plant, and a water source. She made it clear that we needed to talk about the land because she required my permission to sell it. I interrupted her at that point. I made the observation that, had I been incarcerated, she could have sold it, right? Her lawyer's expression told me the answer, so it wasn't really a question. Then she acknowledged that she had advised John not to file a report. I wanted to strike something when I heard this, but I couldn't hit a woman, and if I hit him, my lawyer would sue me. Even though they continued to communicate after that night, it still infuriated me. She clarified that John was the agent behind the attempted transaction and that they needed to stay in touch. He would profit handsomely, and we, the proprietors, would reap much greater rewards. Because of his parents' jobs, he had a lot of contacts in the government and real estate. He seized the opportunity to take me out of the picture. He always had clothes on in his car and never showed up anyplace nude. I wasn't shocked that the police received a totally different account from what actually occurred. Despite her claims that she wouldn't testify against me, my wife was unable to receive a response from me. She expressed her gratitude for my accusations being withdrawn. Before she realized that I had videotaped her and John, I asked her whether she was happy. She remained silent. I passed my phone to her lawyer and we watched the video I had taken. My lawyer knew it existed, but I wasn't able to show it to anyone else at the time, so I don't think they wanted me to display it. I informed her that John's wife would eventually view that video. She then remarked that by doing so, I would be losing out on a significant amount of money that I could never make from my job. I questioned if money or greed was the reason she cheated. She admitted that she had cheated on us. The ensuing dispute went on for more than 60 minutes. During our lunch break, I left the group to eat by myself in order to avoid them. She had, in a twisted manner, delivered wonderful news to me, but it was wrapped in ick. The prospect of selling the land excited the lawyers. They understood that any quick sale would need my approval, and that we would eventually learn about it. If I wanted to, I could call off the whole thing. Although it wouldn't cost John anything just yet, it would prevent me from becoming wealthy. However, I can't become wealthy until my soon-to-be ex-wife also becomes wealthy. Upon my return to the meeting, my spouse gave an explanation of how everything began. 2 of the properties were being shown by John's agency, and she was holding one of those parade of properties showings. John and my wife were acquainted through their professional circles. He approached her one day, asking if we were happy with where we lived. From there, he introduced her to a business agent specializing in manufacturing sites. He explained his grand plan, and she immediately saw the potential for making a lot of money. John, being a trusted figure locally, could acquire land from the residents more easily than an outsider. The 2 of them, working together, could buy low and sell high, but our land was crucial to the deal because of its strategic location. They began coordinating with locals and plotting the transaction. Then, about 6 months before I discovered the affair, they crossed the line into a physical relationship. She claimed they were caught up in the excitement of the deal and that it was purely physical, with no emotional attachment. I struggled to keep my temper in check. I asked if they had used protection, and she confessed they did initially, but then relied on her birth control pills. 6 days, I shouted, explaining that a man's fluids can stay inside a woman for that long. I felt sick thinking about what she exposed me to. I asked how she would feel if I visited a prostitute, put my fingers inside her, and then put them in my wife's mouth. It's graphic, but it's equivalent to what she did to me. She tried to claim she took showers, but I told her that unless she managed to thoroughly rinse out internally, it didn't matter. My revulsion was palpable. She wondered why I looked at her with such disgust. It's because I am disgusted. She exposed me to risks without my consent. The thought of her intimate acts with John made my skin crawl. John can have her she's tainted with his filth now. I had to get out of there. I went and got drunk for the first time since my post-confrontation retreat at my dad's cabin. In a twisted way, I should be pleased. If the land deal goes through, I'll have enough money to pay off my lawyers, repay my parents generously, and start fresh with a significant sum. But the conditions I had to agree to in order to secure that money make me feel even sicker than my wife does. 3 lawyers drafted an agreement. Our 2 lawyers crafted a $5,050 divorce settlement. We can't finalize the divorce until the land sells or the deal collapses, but our marriage is definitively over. I'm not in a rush to be single and remarry, but it bothers me to remain connected to her in any way. I'm forbidden from contacting John's wife now or ever, and I can't show the video evidence to her parents or family. She has told them we're divorcing and admitted to the affair. Regardless, I got my job back and start next week at a new location. There's talk of having the charges John filed against me sealed from my record, which will keep my slate clean. I'm still reeling from her excuses and her nonchalant attitude about those excuses. Even though I was away for 10 days at a time, I never suspected a thing, and our sex life was normal. Now that feels like a bitter irony. At least people in sexless marriages don't have to worry about this kind of betrayal. Her kissing me after being with John felt like an utter violation. Cheating scum like my wife and John don't seem to comprehend the depths of their betrayal. I can only imagine John continued his sex life with his wife during their affair. I wonder if she has any clue that, indirectly, she might have been intimate with my wife. Knowing what I know now, I'm glad I punched John in the mouth, though I'm relieved I didn't kill them or myself. Both of them are utterly revolting, like licking a hobo's rear end in a filthy alley. The thought of how she could willingly go back and forth between two men is beyond my comprehension. Over the years, I had plenty of chances to cheat but never did, primarily out of loyalty. The idea of being with someone who might have just been with others recently is insane to me. Condoms are no guarantee they break and don't protect against everything. Truly safe sex only exists in monogamy, but it only works if both partners are faithful and haven't been promiscuous. If things go well, I could end up better off financially, but it's going to be a while before things really get moving. In the meantime, I'll continue working as I have for years, but I won't have a home to return to. She can stay in the house until it sells and cover all the costs. The house will be demolished, so no one will live there after the sale. Most of our land is undeveloped, and there's no way to move the house elsewhere. When I need to sign paperwork, I'll be notified and show up. Then our paths will part faster than my wife's legs for a 100 bill. She ruined me, and it's not fair. Just being associated with her cheapened me. She exposed truths I never wanted to face. Not every woman is like my wife, and not every man is a piece of scum like John, but people like them ruin it for the rest of us. Why do two loyal people with a strong bond never seem to meet? Almost every post here is about a decent person who got involved with a scumbag and the fallout from that bad decision. Forget about trusting again. I can't even fathom wanting to trust someone like that again. No one is worth the pain she put me through, and she definitely wasn't. It infuriates me that John will likely get away with it. Maybe karma will catch up to him as I did. I don't see a reason for another update. She and I will divorce, money will be split between us, and I will never see or speak to her again. That's how it will end, even if it's indefinitely on hold. I want to thank those who advised me to stay quiet and get lawyers and those who urged me to stay strong. Your support means a lot. To those who suggested I end it all, go eat a sock. I will respond to a few comments over the next day or two, then probably fade away. I wish healing for all of you who have been cheated on, just as I wish it for myself. Final edit. This will be my last comment on the thread. I appreciate those who have supported me and those who gave me a kick in the rear. To the haters, I support your right to criticize, but no, I won't lose sleep over it. As it stands, the land sale is likely to happen around April or May. The industrial real estate agent has cleared most of the hurdles for the company to buy the land. I don't know when construction will start, but by that time I'll have my money and won't care. The process is moving as quickly as possible. My wife still tries to reach out with calls and texts, but I ignore every attempt. I can't believe she ever genuinely cared about me. Her ability to offer herself to random people for their pleasure is something I can't understand. The fact that she can act this way disgusts me, and I want nothing to do with her or anyone like her. It's disheartening that I respected her body more than she did, but it's irrelevant now. I'm done with relationships altogether. There's no way I could consider bringing a child into this world with any woman after her betrayal. While I do want children, I'm considering surrogacy after the land sale. Given her infidelity, the only potential contribution she could have made was children. Nowadays, women don't need men to have kids, and I don't need another unfaithful partner to start a family. Through surrogacy, I can ensure my children are raised with strong morals and ethics. My ex-wife has shown she lacks both morals and ethics. Her actions proved she could never be a good wife, and she would undoubtedly be a terrible mother. God help any child she brings into this world.